Hey, you guys, welcome to Talks with Tiff TV. I am Tiffany Bless Turner, and today we're going to kick off our first episode of Identity. And I have with me my handsome husband, and he's going to do a deep dive on identity today. So, yeah.
Yeah, so very humbled and grateful to have been invited to the famous room that I don't get to come in. Glad to be a part of the podcast. And like you said, we're going to be talking about identity, which is very important because your identity is everything. Everything flows from who you are, right? And we talk about the phrase be, do, have. Who you are allows you to do what you can do, and then you can have things based on what you do, instead of have, do, be, where people feel like you have to have something in order to do something and then be something. The Bible teaches the reverse. You already are fearfully and wonderfully made. So that allows you to do the things God called you to do, which means you can have the things God called you to have. Right.
Right. Well, we're going to start from the beginning.
Yeah.
We're going to start from where God says, before I formed you, I knew you. I was like, wow, what exactly does that mean to you? God saying, before I formed you in your mother's womb, I knew you. What did that do for you?
Yeah, so that scripture, and I have the scriptures pulled up so you know that we're not just making things up. This is actually Bible. So this scripture, the context is in Jeremiah chapter 1, and God is calling Jeremiah to be a prophet to the nation of Israel. So what he's telling Jeremiah is, before I even formed you in your mother's womb, I actually already knew who you are. I actually already ordained you and anointed you and appointed you to be a prophet to the nations. All of that happened. All of that was decided before your mother even thought about being pregnant. So what that tells me is, if you break down that, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. So what it's telling us is God already knows us before we're actually conceived at birth, right? So it's not we're conceived, we're a seed inside of our mother, and then God's like, oh, it's a new seed. It's a new person I didn't know before. How are you doing? I'm God. I made you, by the way. No, what he's saying is, before that process, I actually already knew you. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, so that's before people saying to you, like, you were a mistake, or before someone said, I didn't plan to have you. It may not have been in their plans, but it was always in God's plan.
That's good.
So actually, it's like, what did I say earlier about you're actually a part of God's family.
Right.
Now we say our family is our family.
Right.
But your true identity is, no, you're a part of God's family.
Right.
And so that means, when I think of that, I would say, okay, so if I really belong to God, that means that my mom, she only has guardianship over me here on earth, because I actually belongs to God. But I would say, one of the things I used to tell my kids, it just happened just out of the blue in the beginning of me, like, discovering God and walking in faith. I would tell them, you don't belong to me. You're God's responsibility. I'm just here put in place for God to do what it is that He needs to do for you through me, until you're allowed to walk on your own journey. So that's what I would tell the kids. But
yeah, it's a pretty revolutionary thing to say to your child, like, hey, you don't belong to me. Yeah, God's just allowed me to steward what he's given me. And that's another big thing too. We have to think about, God is completely sovereign. So God is all. He knows all. He moves through all. He's all in all, right? So we, from our limited, imperfect, flawed human understanding, we don't necessarily grasp just how sovereign God is. So God knows everything at all times. He is the beginning and the end, first and the last, Alpha and Omega. We can go through the whole list, right? He knows the end of a thing from what? the beginning. So that means when you begin your life, he already knows the end of your life. Now, what does that mean? Well, let's go Bible. So let's go Psalm 139, Psalm 139, starting at the 13th verse. And it says, "For you formed my inward parts." So this is David talking to God. And David is saying, "For you formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb." Now this goes back to what we just said in Jeremiah. Scripture speaks for scripture. All scripture cross-references each other. So David is saying, you knitted me together in my mother's womb, right? So I wasn't a mistake. I wasn't an accident. I wasn't a I wasn't an oopsie, or they would say oops baby, right? The black community had this thing, oops baby.
Our parents off God, but it didn't catch God off guard.
Right, because God is the one who actually knitted us together in our mother's womb. So like you said, God is using our mother's womb, right, as a place for us to be knit together. We're already his, but we have to be born through a woman. That's the way he designed it. That's the way he set it up.
So your mother's womb is the vehicle
to
get you here.
Right. And there's a certain design that God has for that. And sometimes when we do things outside of that design, we say, oh, our babies were a mistake. The baby is not a mistake. You may have did it in a unfavorable time period, but the baby's not a mistake because God designed it that way. So then it says, I praise you. This is a very famous scripture. I praise you for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. So what that talks about is we were actually made. We were created. God made us fearfully. That's a Hebrew word, and it doesn't mean afraid. It means with respect, with reverence, with awe. As it says, fearfully and wonderfully made. So God was very intentional when he made us. He made us with actually deep respect, right? Because it just said, before I formed you, before I made you, I already knew you. So the relationship didn't happen after we were born. The relationship actually happened before.
Before your mistakes, before your mishaps, before everything. Like, so you are not what you have done.
Oh yeah, no, that's great. No, and this is good because my beautiful wife is here to kind of keep us on track and keep us grounded, because this will turn into a 50-minute Bible study and y'all be like, I don't have time for this. Yeah. But let me just say, but I want to give Bible because I want y'all to actually go back and read the scriptures for yourself and just say, oh, the Turners, they just up there just talking and politicking. Like, no, this is actually scripture. So I keep the Bible close to me at all times.
And the goal is to embody who God has called you to be. Embody like
that's good.
What he has said about you, and not just walk with your head held down because of something you just mistakenly said or something you just did out of your own emotions or whatever the case may be. But you want to embody, I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. I'm not a mistake. I'm not what I just did. And just be confident, like I am who God says I am.
Right. Yeah, no, this is great. And that leads to the next chunk of scriptures, actually. So then it says, my frame was not hidden from you when I was being made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth. So what it's saying there is, while you allowed my mother's womb to be the place where I'm made and conceived, while that was happening unseen by others, you actually still knew me. It wasn't hidden from you. People can be pregnant and they not even know.
Yeah.
Or people are pregnant, they don't want to tell people yet, so it's hidden. But he's saying, while I was being made, because every day the baby is growing and growing and growing. While I was being made in secret, God, you actually still knew me. Yeah. Isn't that interesting? But then it says, your eyes, God's eyes, saw my unformed substance. So Jeremiah 1 said, before I was formed, before I formed you, I knew you, right? Now David is saying, before the formation was actually complete, I was unformed. Your eyes still saw me, right? And then it says, in your book were written every one of them. Every one of what? The days that were formed for me. So what David is saying is, you actually have a book. God has a book with all of your days already formed in the book. And David is saying, you knew all those days before I was even finished being formed. So what does that mean? God knows your journey. He knows the end of everything from the beginning. He knew every day you would live on earth before there even was an earth. Right. That's the next scripture. But yeah,